Joining us now, Democratic Senator Chris Coons of Delaware, member of the Appropriations, Foreign Relations, and Judiciary Committees. Just a technical questions. Is the president overstepping his authority in these executive orders on energy and the environment, since a lot of this is embedded in law?
Yes, Andrea, there's a number of these executive orders, this blizzard of executive orders, that ultimately will have little effect because they violate law or the Constitution. But what is striking to me, Andrea, about the scope and the reach of these hundreds of executive orders signed by President Trump is they really won't reduce prices. The average American who voted for Donald Trump says they did so because they were concerned about high prices. And his threat today, repeated recently, of double-digit tariffs on our biggest trading partners, on Mexico and Canada and China, will only increase the prices average Americans face. One of the executive orders he signed tries to roll back some of the innovations to reduce prices for health care and prescription drugs that was led by the Biden administration. I frankly think instead of just trying to stick it to Biden with executive orders, he should be working with all of us to try and actually reduce costs.
And when you talk about the tariffs, I was going to ask you about that, except that those are threats, and you could argue that that's his bargaining position. But when he says he's canceling projects, wind and solar, and the prescription drugs, those were passed by Congress.
So where there is something that was legislatively enacted by Congress, his executive orders will have little effect. Where there's a project that is already permitted and already underway, they'll have limited effect. But that'll end up being tied up in court for some time. So if you had a company that was involved in an offshore wind project, for example, and his executive order puts the permits at risk for that project, rather than litigating over it for years, they may simply move to investing in a different country.
And I may have misspoken because I'm looking at the health orders. So those were the prescription drugs. Was that an executive order by President Biden, former President Biden, so that can be reversed?
Yes. So to be clear, he can't reverse the parts of the Inflation Reduction Act that are moving towards really reducing prescription drug prices across the board for 10 major medications this year, 15 more this coming year. That's in statute. But he did reverse an executive order to study ways to reduce prescription drug prices and costs in the healthcare system.
Now, since you're on judiciary, I don't want to let you go before I ask you about the pardons and a lot of the sweeping decisions that are being made involving the judiciary and the removing of key figures, experienced public servants from the national security, counterterror, criminal prosecution, and departments of justice.
Andrea, I think one of the most alarming things that President Trump did on his first day was to pardon roughly 1,500 individuals who stormed the Capitol, hundreds of whom assaulted police officers. And both the FOP, the Fraternal Order of Police, and the International Association of Chiefs of Police put out a statement saying that it was disheartening and inappropriate for President Trump to have pardoned hundreds of violent criminals who assaulted police officers. They also condemned some of the pardons of folks who were serving long prison sentences related to drugs and minor drug crimes that President Biden issued on his last day. But I think what matters most here about this issue is that hundreds of violent criminals who assaulted police officers were pardoned just because their assault on police officers took place as part of the January 6th riot, something that President Trump thinks was fine. I do not. Many others do not. This did not contribute to our public safety.